conference championships played and over with, the College Football Playoff Selection Committee made their final selections of the season Sunday. Even after 4 years in the new college football playoff system, the drama and the suspense of the selection did not disappoint. Ranked at number 1 is Alabama, followed by Clemson at number 2, Notre Dame at 3, and Oklahoma taking the number 4 spot. Georgia sits at 5, and behind them is Ohio State. Alabama will play Oklahoma in the Orange Bowl, and Clemson will take on Notre Dame in the Cotton Bowl. I'm here with Caroline Hendershot and Sydney Pilut to discuss the committee's final decisions. So what were you guys' initial thoughts to the top 4 coming out Sunday?
Well, I thought that Oklahoma, if they could beat Texas, would slide into number 4 because their first loss was against Texas and only by a field goal, so that would kind of bump them up and negate their quality loss. But I'm still upset that Georgia isn't in it, but I kind of saw it coming if Oklahoma could beat Texas, which they did on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, talk about drama. The whole game between Alabama and Georgia was incredible. And the SEC is obviously one of the most competitive conferences out there, along with all of the others, but it's really has the leaders of most of the college football. So I just thought that it was obvious Georgia should be going in after that game. It was the only team that Alabama really was put up against a challenge with defensively. So I don't know. I would say that I was pretty shocked, kind of upset. I would love to see that game happen round 2, but a little disappointed. But congratulations to Oklahoma. Very well deserved. They had a great game against Texas. But yeah, I was very shocked.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's always that coming out of the SEC having 2 teams in the playoffs. That was the most debated about spot. A lot of people thought that Ohio State could have been in there too. But let's look at some of the playoff committee's criteria in strength of schedule, conference championships, team records, and then head-to-head results. So for Georgia, it was kind of like the head-to-head result. You have Alabama, who's going to be in the top 4, and then the conference championship. What of those do you think that Oklahoma didn't fit, and why did they make it?
I think that Oklahoma's biggest struggle to get in was definitely their strength of their schedule, because in comparison, when your top team other than yourself is Texas and you get to play them twice in comparison to Georgia, who has to go through LSU, which was their other loss that I think set them back, and you have Auburn, which is debatable if they're relevant or not, but you always have Bama and LSU and Georgia, so when you have a stronger division like that, it makes your schedule harder. So that's, I think, where Oklahoma maybe lacked in comparison to Georgia, which helped them with their record, obviously.
Mm-hmm. And then for Ohio State, did you guys ever think they were going to get in and try not to be biased?
I mean, trying my best not to be biased, but I honestly, genuinely did not think that they had a chance just because they've been really sloppy with a lot of their games this season. And if you're going to be in the college playoffs, you have got to be on top of your game. And I guess that is also where Georgia did fall because of the LSU game. But Ohio State really only turned on the Jets, I think, against Michigan this year. And that's where I saw them really dominate, come out as a team that I've known in the past. And so I haven't seen that consistently this season, and I think that is what hurt them and their chances.
Mm-hmm. It made it pretty clear, the college playoff committee, college football playoff committee, made it pretty clear that Ohio State was not really in the thought process when coming to the 4th, because they did put Georgia, a 2-loss team, right outside of the top 4, and that was a big deal too. You're going to have these undefeated teams with Alabama, Clemson, and Notre Dame, and then you're going to take the 1-loss team over the 2-loss teams, despite strength of schedule. As for Notre Dame, it's an interesting situation because they don't play a conference championship because they're not in one.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that? So when do you put conference championships kind of above than like strength of schedule? Because Notre Dame's strength of schedule wasn't necessarily a big time thing either. Though I think people think it is, and I don't believe it was.
I would agree with you completely that Notre Dame doesn't have the risk that even Alabama had the risk of getting knocked out if it was a debate on if Georgia won, Bama would have a loss, what do you do? Bama was put in the situation where they have to play a championship game against a really, a top 5 team. And Notre Dame just got a bye week, basically, and they don't have to play a conference championship. And they also don't have the rivalries of a conference, in the Big Ten, Michigan plays Michigan State and OSU. You have, even if you go to the Big Ten West, which isn't as strong, you still have Wisconsin, Northwestern, which is getting stronger. when you have a conference and you keep playing these teams, a rivalry develops, and even if the team is not as strong, the rivalry makes the game harder. And without being in a conference and playing consistently decent teams and having that last week where you could really lose your slot, it makes your schedule look weaker, in my opinion. And it makes it hard to root for Notre Dame in that aspect, without trying to be biased. Because who did they have to compete against last week, Like Georgia was on the line, Alabama was on the line. Everyone was waiting to see what happened. And Notre Dame was just sitting pretty at their number 3 spot.
Yeah, and that goes into they didn't have to play that game. They don't have to suffer injuries.
Yeah.
Whereas Alabama, as we saw in the SEC championship, did suffer a big injury with their starting quarterback Tua going out in the 4th quarter. Thank goodness they have another championship caliber quarterback at Jalen Hurts. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it was just all props to Jalen Hurts, really waiting for that opportunity and that moment. A lot of coaches emphasize that, especially with backup quarterbacks, you never know what's going to happen. But to be ready and to get everything prepared for that possibility of a moment where you have to go in. And I thought he performed great, like really helped the team secure it. And thank God that Tua isn't like completely hurt.
There's a chance he's coming back. He has
a chance.
High ankle sprain.
High ankle sprain. So there is a chance, which hopefully for them he does, because obviously he's phenomenal. But I thought Jalen Hurts did a really great job on seizing his opportunity.
Absolutely. And him staying at Alabama even after last year's championship game, which was against Georgia, he got pulled at halftime and they put Tua in kind of the same situation over at Clemson where they had a quarterback and then decided to put in their freshman quarterback. And so then you have that great storyline going into this top 4. And Clemson at number 2, they have a freshman quarterback, true freshman, Trevor Lawrence, going, into number 2 and taking on the 3 seed. So there's all that, but then we also want to get into Michigan.
Yes.
So Michigan ended up at number 7 and will be taking on the number 10 ranked Florida Gators in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. What do you guys think about that?
I think the Florida game can get a little repetitive now at this point from a Michigan fan standpoint, but 7 isn't a terrible ranking to leave. Obviously, we had the high hopes of the playoffs, but if you can't show up for your rivalry game at the end of the season and you're just going to negate all the work you put in the rest of the games, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get the same thing over and over. You're going to keep having the same results. So I'm not saying I'm not excited to watch Michigan in a bowl game, but it's not what they could have got from their season.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, it's a repetitive thing. Just in 2015, the Wolverines defeated the Gators in the Citrus Bowl, 41-7. And then just last season, they opened both their seasons with a game against each other. And Michigan took that one home as well. So I would agree with you. That's a repetitive game. It's boring at this point.
It's not like it's a big, like the OSU game happens every year, the Michigan State game happens every year, but that has backstory, it has history, and it's becoming to feel more like a conference game to like play a Florida team, where you want to take your season and your opportunities to get into that Power 4,
Yeah, absolutely. Any last thoughts, you guys?
I think Michigan will beat Florida if they come to play. I think that they had been playing really well up until the Ohio State game, and I think they kind of fell apart there. But I'm hoping that they kind of get all their ducks in a row and come to play.
Yeah, and the Michigan Wolverines will be heading to their bowl game without Rashawn Gary, but still with Shea Patterson.
Yes.
There hasn't been any other declarations for the NFL yet, but that is out there as well, and they'll be preparing for that, and that will be December 29th. That is not a New Year's Day bowl game. And then as for the semifinal games, they will also be played on December 29th, with the 2 winning teams advancing to the championship game on January 7th in beautiful Santa Clara, California.